Hello and welcome to another episode of Not Another Podcast featuring the Esports Social Club. I am James Shimaneso Cowan. I nearly forgot my own name then. Joining me on the couch is once again Ian Sniper Turner, a very special guest, Michelle Pocket Psych Payne, and of course Geordie McAleer. You do prefer to go by those names?
Yeah, I'll answer to anything.
Okay, you're in gaming now. You've got to have an alias.
I do. I'm Pocket Psych, for sure.
Can I call you Mickey?
No.
Okay. Well,
that wasn't me.
You don't answer to anything.
I don't answer to anything.
Oh, well, you lied. Well, that's a terrible start.
Oh, no. Anyway, either way, we're going to go and thank our special sponsor, Skrilla. You may remember, have now rebranded to PickleBet, so we will thank them. That's right. We've got to rejig our jingle to go with that.
We have to workshop it.
They are still Australia's first esports betting website, so if you are going to have a punt, check them out. And do remember, if you are gambling, gamble responsibly. Gentlemen, and of course, Michelle, it is fantastic to have someone of, I was reading some of the things that you've been involved in, someone with your qualifications finally sitting on this couch and showing us, exactly.
I'm just raising the levels, aren't I?
Exactly. The room's now more
Could
intelligent.
actually be the most qualified person in esports at the moment.
I think so.
I'm just putting it out there.
I think so. But for those that aren't familiar with Michelle and her work, obviously you hail from a background of psychology. Sports psychology as well. And obviously as we start to see esports, mesh with more traditional industries in sports, we're starting to see a lot of crossover in those two particular fields.
I want to say to everybody, that's a great field to be in. It's really fun to be in esports.
It is, and it obviously, as we said, there are a lot of learning from both sports and esports that have a lot of crossover as well. Are you finding that?
Yeah, absolutely. In esports, they use exactly the same skills that we would in traditional sports, except that you may have seen a tweet this morning I sent out that the communication side of things is so much more important in esports.
It is.
And it's one you spend a lot more time dealing with.
And particularly in, I would term those information-based games as well, like Counter-Strike. You've been working with some Counter-Strike teams. Yep. Information and communication are at the forefront of importance, aren't they?
It's not just the content that you've got to deliver, it's the way you deliver it as well to your teammates.
Oh, jeez.
Not mentioning any names, Ian, but still.
Yeah.
You were an expert communicator, weren't you, Ian? You still are.
Oh, jeez. I am a shocking communicator at the worst of times. And at the best of times, I'm awesome.
Best of times?
Yeah.
So we try and lift the best of times to be more regular.
Yeah.
So sports psychologists work to try and look at patterns of behaviour, thoughts and actions, and those that lead to better performance we try and get them to do more often, and those that lead to poorer performance we do less often.
Is that a process of trial and error?
Sometimes it can be, but sometimes when you work with a sports psychologist, we can fast track that for you.
Otherwise, it's generally a lot of these teams are having to either make these trials and errors themselves. Mm-hmm. And are you finding that a lot of these teams are responding well to your involvement?
Yeah, I think so. I think the teams that I've worked with so far have been really responsive to the things I've had to say. Sometimes, because I don't have a background in CS or other games, I've never played any of those things before. And so they look at me and roll their eyes back when I make some comments that don't apply at all, but they're trying to use what I'm saying and apply it to the game, even though I don't know the stuff exactly right.
Yeah, the message remains the same, despite the small nuances
that's right.
of knowing exactly what
I'm getting much better at it nowadays, but in my early days, I thought I knew a lot, but I know a lot more now.
Yeah. But interesting, like you've send us through, obviously, some information more so on your background. And the interesting point for me that I'll first note is that you actually taught at universities.
I
as
still
well.
do. Yeah, I teach at unis now.
And
That's my bread and butter job.
do you find that, obviously...
I have lots of credibility now with my students.
Yeah, exactly. Do you find that gives you a lot more street cred? And,
I absolutely do, yeah.
And obviously, working with a lot of the teams that you're working with have players in them that are of university age as well. Do you find working with that
I love that age group. Yeah, I love it, yeah.
And
it's really good.
do you find as though, obviously, they all have problems that they need to work through outside of the game? They're all very similar, though. You find working with your real, university students is similar to working.
Well,
with
I teach at uni, but I also have a consulting job in sports psychology, and I do my esports stuff as well. So the way I work with esports is sort of three-pronged. I use my experience working with high-performance teams, and I give them high-performance information about the usual things like drinking more water, sleeping more, eating the right foods. Thank you, Mac. So the high-performance stuff is really important. Taking rest breaks and, just looking after yourself for a long career. And then there's the player welfare stuff, and that's applicable to not just players, but anyone to do with, mental health type issues. And then I also talked about sports psychology techniques. So those three prongs are things that I bring to a team.
I think one of the things, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong here, Ian, but teams traditionally struggle with, conflict resolution.
Oh, absolutely.
I think is one of the biggest problems that any esports teams actually suffer from, is that knowing how to deal with criticism and delivering criticism to players and understanding different feedback modes and who responds well to group criticism as opposed to individual feedback. Do you find that to be the case?
So that's in the big part of the communication stuff that I do. And so I try to make the teams understand that open and honest is the best way of all to be. And so I try and teach them how to speak freely and honestly with each other. And sometimes they're not used to that.
It's true. Honestly, it's very
They're never
confronting.
used to it in Counter-Strike.
I'm teaching my teams pretty well.
Yeah.
This is an interesting point.
Big advantage
that I found with working with some groups of players, just in playing capacity, is that sometimes the players that played in team sports, you think they'd have an upper hand at you're working in a team environment, taking criticism, etc. Sometimes they're the worst, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it depends on whether they're open to change. And so if they've been brought up in that area where they're in a team environment and they've always spoken badly, they haven't had to change, then that's they're hard to change. But if they see someone that brings value to making the change, then they will.
Have you found that first and foremost, working with new teams, or at least starting to work with teams, do you find as though that earning their respect sometimes is a barrier to getting them to?
I'm the wrong age and the wrong gender probably to be working with esports teams perhaps, but I have, as you see, a lot of credentials, and so I think that's helpful. In both cases where I've started working with teams, it wasn't me making a move to them; it was them. In the first instance, if I can go back in my history, about
definitely.
2 years ago, Ferg Stevenson was working with Tainted Mind, so he's a coach there, and I worked with the team wanted a sports psych, and they contacted my son, who was the chief operations manager at Chiefs, and
still is.
They're looking for a
Weird flex.
sports psych, and so he said, I think I know a sports psych, so I started working with them, and then they sort of changed personnel or whatever, and Ferg remembered me last year, and so I started involved with the Chiefs boys. It was Chiefs in those days, and then I think the team stayed the same, but I did more work from about August through to November with the Chiefs at that point. So they sort of called on me because I had a little bit of work with them to start with, and then when sort of Chiefs sort of fell apart at the end of the year, Blitz and Ofnu said, come with me to Avant, and so I did.
Oh, well, it was that easy.
The buy-in is easy if you've got that sort of people who worked with you in the past and they want you in there. That's great.
That's right.
It's a little bit harder probably if you're going in cold.
Yeah.
You'd have to prove your worth at that point.
And they always say those who need the advice the most don't take it.
Exactly.
Actually, it's an interesting point because I think from memory, that first team that you would have worked with, the Tainted Minds team, had some very established players in it as well, which obviously presents some strengths, but also some difficulties as well.
I didn't do a lot of work with them, so I can't make much claims to that. But I did a little bit of work with them. So I didn't know them boys very well. I didn't even meet them in person.
And it was also your first endeavour into esports as well, so you're still getting used to that? Or did you do something
It was
before?
more sort of at arm's length, me providing information to them about how they might operate better, but it wasn't me working with the players one-to-one like I get a chance to nowadays.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that team really needed your help. So
I think many teams out there really need my help, but people like me out there. And so I want to say that I want to encourage people who are psychology trained, who want to work in esports, reach out to some of the teams, and I'm sure they'd love to use you.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that there's continual need for industry professionals in the sports world to take an interest in esports. Because I think you said it yourself that there's a lot of learnings that you've taken from esports and been able to apply back across the sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really good.
And I think you actually have a note in here that said it sounds like you're sometimes the kiss of death for some of these teams. Is that?
It feels that way because some of the teams have disbanded after they worked with me, but I understand that's the normal way in esports.
Correct. It's not
I'm not going to feel bad.
No, it's just the way it is. That's the motion of the ocean in esports.
Well, you said truth and open and honesty. Maybe that's not the thing some teams want to hear, but maybe what they need to hear.
Sometimes that's true because sometimes I get asked by teams to come and give a chat. And I've been to a couple, and then afterwards the team just disbands because I've basically
it's you and I.
Well, I think it's actually just you talk to these people and you talk about your path to success and what buy-in is required, and people realize then that it's not the right place for them.
Right.
It's like you sit down and you actually talk about your problems. Then you're like, well, I'm the problem. And so they're like, okay, well then
you're out of here.
You see the team change, and that was actually ground zero. I went in there when they had Moe and all the other guys, and what was his name?
Extinct.
Zemp.
Oh, Zemp.
Yeah, and Extinct.
Yeah.
And I just said, look, you've all got to have each other's back, and you've got to be playing to win and accepting criticism and working on the game in your own time. And this has got to be what you want. You've got to want to be the best together, all five of you. And then a week later, it's like everyone was like, yeah, I'm quitting CS.
Everyone just decided then and there that
it's like they just had a wake-up call all of a sudden that, if your teammate tells you to do something better, you've got to do it better now because you're all trying to be the best. And then that was just too much of an ask.
Everything is just irreparable at that point. Another really interesting point that I am going to bring up is that obviously I said earlier in the podcast that you're now in esports, you're now in game. A part of that is obviously having an alias or a name, but yours actually has a lot of meaning as well.
Yeah, so,
Pocket Psych. Take us through that.
Yeah.
I invented something called Pocket Psychology, or I call it Pocket Psychology, and I registered the name. It's short video tracks that people could put on their phones and be reminded of good thinking habits when they call them when they needed it. And I thought that was a pretty cool title. So I've had that name for quite a few years. And I thought, I might as well use it for my Twitter handle.
Not too dissimilar to the Pocket Bible.
Well, exactly. Same sort of saviour.
That's actually, have you found that any, esports athletes that you've worked with or any just athletes in general have actually, listened to that and actually given you feedback yet? Or
no, not really. No, it's a moment that was there and it's now gone. So
okay.
I'm not
But the
worried
name
about that.
remains.
The name remains.
The name remains.
The person is here. That's what counts.
On our couch, Jim.
Exactly.
I know. As I said, this is the most qualified person that we've, in terms of...
Michelle has been doing sports psychology
I know.
since before you and I were born.
I know.
Not together. not aged together.
No.
Well,
that's a lot of...
That's a lot of years.
Yeah.
No.
But I'm here from Pickle, though. Pickle have brought me here.
Pickle bet.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Look, we've been looking for a jingle on that one, so we tried to just adapt things. Now, you also, as you said, have been learning to play some of the games, mainly CS.
I have.
You're converted now, aren't you?
I've never played the game.
Yep.
Let me get that clear. I really wouldn't like to try because I know I'd be really bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
I pretend when I get to see.
You're good company, by the way.
I get to pretend because when I see off news screen when he plays, I pretend that's me, but I'm not anywhere near as good.
Well, I mean, like, envisioning doing these things is part of the improvement process, isn't it?
I've really taken a big step in trying to learn more about CS myself, and so I've had some teaching from Zuzi, who was able to give me a few classes on all the call-outs, and I've been madly watching all the videos over Christmas, and the fact that I can hear the boys speak on TeamSpeak and watch the video as they're playing live really has made a big impact on how effective I can be as a sports psych with the team.
And also, I think, you mentioned as well that some of the tools that are increasingly becoming available for matches or games, like Counter-Strike, like Skybox,
I love Skybox.
Allow you to just envision the whole, the round or the game or the strategy as it plays out.
On. Yeah, exactly. So I love that side of things.
Do you find that also helps address any issues that you might have to resolve with teams and communications, having that whole picture?
Sorry, with Skybox?
With having Skybox as a tool
I don't think Skybox would help in that situation, but I definitely think the TeamSpeak and the seeing the video live is really crucial.
Mm-hmm. We noticed too, actually, like prior to going live on this, you were glued to the screen watching the team practice as well.
Yeah, so I usually join in, 4 till 10. And then their debrief afterwards.
So you're
I'm right
putting in more hours in some players.
I'm a CS snob these days. Yeah, I love it.
So do you just observe when you're watching the guys practice?
I shall remain mate.
You don't interject at any point?
I do sometimes.
Okay, if someone's being naughty?
No, well, I have some comments to make occasionally, yeah.
I saw you had a notepad as well.
I do, I take notes.
Is it like, are you looking for certain things to note?
So I told you, I'm looking for patterns of behaviour and I'm writing down the notes, yep.
Wow,
Okay.
that'd be scary.
Yes, it would be.
Spending 30 minutes with Ian, I think you've got him worked out, right?
Yeah. Well, we've already done that.
Yeah, we've done that.
So
Yeah. How did that work out for you? Like,
he's perfectly normal. I'm pleased with
to a lot of shock and dismay in the crowd. So
really got me with that one.
Yeah, it was literally everything I already knew about myself. I'm amazing.
It's just confirmation.
And,
really.
We've got a list of things to work on there, haven't we, Ian?
Just a small list, just 1 or 2 things. But
only if you want to change.
Oh, well, I'm not going to get kicked from any more teams, so I don't see the point.
Well, I see a team here on the couch.
I've been very good to these boys.
He didn't get kicked this time, it was Sean. He kicked himself.
Yeah, he's been kicked himself.
And then problem back.
Another feedback session going well.
Actually, that was bad feedback, wasn't it? I guess.
Feedback nonetheless.
You've done it in a real life
Well, what do you
situation.
know? Ah, shit.
Oh dear, but it's not just Counter-Strike athletes you've been working with. You've started to also work with, more recently, some
League
other
of Legends,
titles as well?
Yep. League of Legends, and last year I worked a little bit with Rocket League, so I enjoy all those too.
Are you finding, obviously, a lot of the principles that you're
same
imposing,
sort of things.
same things? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Now, is there any particular game that you've found more difficult to work with? Obviously, just only starting to branch out to some titles, but you find maybe, I know, for example, like Rocket League, there's only 3 players in that team, so there's a lot. You would think a lot less moving parts, but it's more pivotal that they actually communicate more, concisely.
I find that one a little bit easier to do. It's not quite so many layers as there is, let's say, in Counter-Strike. And I'm only just learning in League of Legends, so I'm very new at that, so I don't know what's ahead of me yet.
I think we've got some strong opinions about League of Legends players sitting on this couch. Not going to name names.
I've got to be the teacher's pet tonight. I'm on my best behaviour.
Very good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're on your best behaviour. That's weird, Ian. Now
she said I was normal, Jim. I've got to just
the nicest thing anyone's ever said to him.
I'm still shell shocked.
You're just trying to.
She's seen
work
the results.
Out how to react.
Can't argue.
Just to go back, Jim, I also work with a Moto Grand Prix guy, and it's different working with an individual compared to a team sport. in esports. So it's good fun there as well, but exactly the same principles apply. Not so much communication needed.
Yeah, I was just thinking that actually.
It's internal communication.
Literally,
isn't it?
yeah,
That's right.
it would be.
It's
yeah.
all self-talk. That's
Yeah,
right.
self-talk.
Yep.
Staying in the game, all that sort of stuff. Getting overtaken.
Shout out to my clients.
Yeah. Getting overtaken and whatnot, you've got to deal with that during a race, or is it?
It's based on laps, so I understand it's only them on a lap trying to be the fastest. So
Right,
it's
so
not
like time trials.
No, not
Yeah.
like all time trial.
So if they make a mistake on one corner, they got to stay in it so that they don't continue to make mistakes, or is it more like what's the psychology of a Formula One driver? Because this is something we won't understand.
It's like about safety and making sure you're going to finish the race. That you're not going to topple the bike and
Right.
yeah, it's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine too. Also, the fact that when they're in race mode as well, like getting a result is better than making an error and making an error of judgment as well, and being too
cutting
hard on
it too
themselves
close,
in a moment. Like,
flying too close to the sun.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's a fine line.
Yeah, Icarus. He learned a valuable lesson. He did. Interesting. Another point was that you work with a Dark Souls streamer as
Yes,
well. Now,
yeah.
Dark Souls is a very punishing game.
Yes, I understand that.
It has.
Is he a speedrunner?
It is one of the hardest games out there.
He does a little bit.
overcome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you had a chat to Conky?
No.
He's not a Dark Souls
He
streamer.
needs some psychology, I think, for when he plays that
what's the-
Sekiro.
Sekiro.
Yeah.
He turns into a raging maniac after he beats a boss. Like, okay, all right, calm down, dial it back a bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, do you have, obviously having now started to branch out a little bit across other games, do you have any like short-term or long-term goals for the teams or the players that you're working with at all? Or?
Well, the aim is to get as high as possible. So not any strict game goals for that. I'm not sure I understand. Sorry.
Any personal goals?
No, just to get some experience and go as far as I can, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are you finding, are you going to be writing any coursework on esports for your regular university courses? Or?
No, I don't think so. I think a lot of that's behind me now. So writing all coursework notes.
Actually, I was actually fascinated as well that you'd written the first coursework master's degree.
Yeah,
in
1991.
sports psychology?
Yeah, that's right. So it's my major claim to fame. Sort of shows my age a little bit, but that's okay.
We all age.
Well, experience and
We do.
wisdom. That's what we say.
Yeah. Well, I'll start saying that.
Thanks.
Being like one of, I guess in Australia, were you sort of one of the first
Yeah.
sports psychologists?
Yeah, I'm the dinosaur.
Okay. So how many people came and told you it was like bullshit?
Oh, plenty.
Yeah.
And
What was it like
my
dealing with
parents,
that?
I'm exactly the same boat as you guys. You can never make a career out of sports. What are you
Yeah.
thinking of?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. Right. That only
But
just
you
dawned
are.
on me how hard it'd be at the start because so many people, I remember like back then the mindset of like, that sort of generation would have been like,
Who's interested in
you're,
that?
You're a pansy. It's stupid and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. And then you push through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nice.
I just ignore them.
Yeah, good. There you go.
Now, also, I'm just gonna delve back through your
Okay.
history. You introduced psych testing in the 1997 AFL draft camp.
Right. So
What sort
before
of things
then,
were you looking for? Like, what sort of testing was that?
okay. So let me describe it before. Before then, there were, I think, 14, 16 teams in the AFL, and players would, if they were keen to be drafted players keen to be drafted by a team would have to do a psych test for every single team that was interested in them,
Right.
which was crazy. And they'd all be using different tests, and the players were just saying, do we have to do another test? It's crazy. So I thought to myself, why don't we just do one test, give all the information out to everybody, and they can all see what's there, and they can pick the ones that fit their club best.
So you were streamlining the process.
I was streamlining the process, yes. So I ran it the first year, and then the AFL decided to not use me. They used a bloke after that because I won't go there. Okay,
AFL in the
What
late
year was
90s.
that? What year was that?
97.
That'll do it.
It's AFL in the late 90s.
Well, there you have it, guys. Esports more accommodating than the AFL.
Absolutely, and that's what's really welcoming. I really love esports for that reason. That
AFL's
I'm
not
really
even-
welcomed.
The AFL's not even accommodating to esports.
No.
That's a different
To be
tangent.
honest.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, jeez.
And what was that? 20 years later? 30 years later? Yeah.
Are you finding Actually, that's it. Yeah, you said it. They're more welcoming. So you're finding that maybe esports athletes, as you said, that have reached out to you, obviously in the first instance, they're less resistant to any sort of work.
Anyone who's is qualified is welcome to join. Yeah,
we don't care.
That's right.
Basically.
Yeah, they'll take anybody.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I mean,
almost anyone.
Yeah, almost. We've had some BSs in the past.
Right. Have you? Okay.
Yeah. I think everyone in esports has had to deal with a BSer in the past.
Oh, that's not good. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the only...
I'm here to lift the field.
That's the downside. So when someone who's legitimate comes along, we don't care if, as far as we're concerned, the sun shines out of their ass, which is what's happening here.
It does.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, they heard it here first, folks. But yeah, it's. I think it's awesome. I think it's really awesome.
Thanks. I really enjoy being here.
It's one of those, as we said, like fields that you're... as you find more similarities and obviously, techniques and things at work, as you said, you're applying them in the real world as well. I don't know if there's too many more curveballs that esports are going to throw at you in terms of, new trends and whatnot in sports psychology. It's pretty much, you're applying your knowledge to a field that hasn't had anything like this before.
Right. Yeah. And sports psychology hasn't changed much over probably 30 years or so. So what I'm saying is, been tried and tested, and we know it works well. So,
do you think that there might be also some value, obviously not just in working with the teams, but also the managers as well? Because I think sometimes it's safe to say the managers of these teams have the most contact with the players, so like they could definitely benefit from feedback and communication techniques as well.
So, like Ian's suggested, when I gave some people a test called the TASTE, the Test of Attentional Interpersonal Style. It looks at how people relate to other people and communication styles and reading the play and a whole lot of really useful stuff. And I think that information can be used by anyone in an organisation to see how they might get the best out of their people.
I actually think, 100% now listening to obviously yourself speak and obviously, applying a bit of what you've revealed to us here. I think definitely a lot of managers and people in managerial positions in esports organizations could benefit from working with yourself. I can think of a
couple in particular that you have instances where you're representing this guy's or this girl's organization, and everything you do on the court reflects them somehow. And then you get after the game, they'll come over and they'll say something, and sometimes it can be just like
the wrong thing,
the dumbest thing at the time.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely, I think they're.
So managers and coaches, for a coach to be able to speak the right way to the players is really important as well to get the message across most clearly. And so it can really help those sort of things as well.
Because a lot of, coaches in gaming spaces, whilst they have great knowledge of the game, not necessarily so many
but they might not have
interpersonal
worked with conflicts
skills
before. And
correct. I think that's a huge area of opportunity, to be honest, like working with management as well as players.
Yeah, good.
So, put that one out there. We'll put that one out there as well. Not just
put it in your
the
back
players.
pocket.
I'll pocket it, yes.
And I'll pocket psych it.
Yeah.
Also, we're going to, obviously, as we do with all our other guests as well, bring you along for the ride with some of the other topics that we're going to be talking about here. But it's obviously great to get a window into the world of sports psychology. And as you said, what you're learning from the players is of massive benefit to future generations of players as well. So I'm really keen to see how that actually develops. You working with teams and maybe even some more sports psychologists coming into the space as well.
That'd be great.
Because I know already there are a lot of sports psychologists in other regions starting to work with teams as well. And I think a big proponent of that actually is a lot of sporting teams, traditional sporting teams, investing in esports teams. Mm-hmm. So it's a natural expansion,
right?
Cross-pollination.
That they would utilize
the
existing
thing is,
staff.
It's a job is a job, right? So sports psychology, esports psychology, may be just the same thing, and it's just a job, but a different court, a different game.
Just before we go too much further, I want to make sure that we understand the point that sports psychologists are highly trained, and you can't use the term sports psychologist unless you actually a trained sports psychologist. I was not. I was a sports psychologist for many years. I dropped my registration, and I went through a whole lot of anguish last year to try and get it back again, because I wanted to work in the field and I had to be known as a sports psychologist.
Right.
So you have to make sure that they're properly credentialed.
Right.
Is there a name for that credential, or is it just sports psychology?
Sports psychology is a title you're allowed to use when you're properly credentialed.
Oh, well, there you go.
Awesome. And is there a way for people to sort of verify
they would check through APRA, who's the registering body. So you need to type into APRA and check their name, and they'd say yes, they're registered or not.
So they have a database that
they do.
has all the registered sports psychologists. Awesome. So yeah, anyone that is, maybe just starting to venture into that world, obviously.
Or check with me. Send me a
check with
DM.
Michelle. She has obviously the means to check the database, but also, as you said, you've got there's various
contacts.
ways. Yep. You've got little birdies everywhere.
Little contact like octopus legs.
Awesome. Well, as we said, we're going to bring you along for the ride with our regular topics. Now, we are going to delve into some more traditional esports topics in terms of news. Obviously, one of the teams that you're working with, funnily enough, Carnage, the female team, are actually competing at Girl Gamer Fest over in Dubai.
Yeah, go girls.
Have you found that they're a very driven team by the sound of it, and looking at their work ethic?
Yep, very hardworking. That's right. So the way I work with the girls is exactly the same way I work with the boys. No difference.
And they were competing at Girl Gamer Fest, as we said. I think the unfortunate thing for them is that looking at some of the news on Twitter is that some of the games have been delayed due to some technical issues in the practice rooms and things like that. So, I mean, obviously we're no stranger to the Girl Gamer Fest and how it was run here. Let's just say we were less than impressed with, obviously, the production levels and the event management and how things panned out here. But looking at the event overseas, they've actually, done a really good job from what we can see from the outside.
Yeah, from what I heard with the one over here, they had some representatives from Girl Gamer Fest that were less than impressed after seeing how everything ran. So, you can only assume that overseas, even for the qualifiers for all the different regions, they did a much better job.
Yeah, from what I heard, all the other regions were a lot better. But this grand final, there's been a couple of hiccups. So we'll see, though. I actually can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, as we're recording this, their games were scheduled to start, but they have been pushed back a little bit. So I think that was the...
esports is no stranger to delays.
No.
Technical difficulties.
Also, it looks like the girls are having
just
a really
player
good time over there, because all I've seen is just them posting photos of them in pools, just having fun.
It's just a classic
feed on airplanes.
Eating lots in the buffet.
Yeah.
That's a great esports experience.
Yeah, it's just your classic international grand final experience. I've experienced it a couple of times.
Oh, have you?
Okay.
I haven't heard about that one.
It's you get treated like royalty, so
lap it up while you can.
Yeah, exactly, and then have a diet when you come back.
Yep.
Otherwise, you'll end up on a couch in a few years.
Yeah.
On a podcast. But obviously, we wish them all the best at that event. Now, I mean, this is a bit of a segue into the next piece that we're going to talk about, which was the Intel Challenge. I don't know if you're familiar with it in this iteration, but a few years back, it was to give people some background to it. It was in the 2015 edition of IEM Katowice. Intel worked and partnered with an organization called AnyKey, which were, they were essentially advocates of women in esports, and together they worked and created a competition along with ESL called the Intel Challenge. And that was, I guess, the premier female Counter-Strike event for the year. Essentially, it is run 2015 through to 2019.
Yeah, they had the qualifiers on during IEM usually. Yeah,
and I think we worked with ESL on a 2015 Katowice broadcast. We were doing a B stream for the main event, but also post that we actually covered almost the entire Intel Challenge event as well. And as I said, it was the premier event for female Counter-Strike. That, by the looks of things, as we said, was part and parcel with IEM Katowice this year.
The circuit, the pro circuit.
Correct. No longer a thing. So it's just been silently. It wasn't until anyone raised questions about it that it has been removed from
it's
the
the
calendar.
second one this year now with Wes G.
So
correct.
now, like back to what we were saying about grassroots and getting people into it to begin with. There's no real clear pathway now for pro females.
Correct.
Without Girl Gamer, what is there to play for internationally,
Yep.
etc. So
Yeah.
How are you ever going to earn a living?
yeah, exactly.
Correct. I think that like obviously it serves a great deal of importance as well. In future role models are out there, but without competitions like this, what are their entry points into esports? I think that begs the biggest question, is that whilst it might have only been a small part of IM Katowice for an ESL from an event perspective. Obviously, it comes at a
ESWC's gone as well.
Yeah,
that was a big one for the female circuit.
Actually, yeah, that's true. So, like, it begs the question: what's the next big event for them? It is events like Girl Gamer Fest that are now just
marquee
because they're there. Yeah, because they're there now in that space, and obviously providing not just qualifiers in one region, but multiple different regions. It's now on them to actually step up and become the premier event.
It's also now on the TOs to make sure that it comes back to Australia and they do a better job so that we don't lose the invite if that's the only opportunity going around.
Mm. So I think you're 100% right in saying that if the global organisers weren't happy with how things were run here, open the event for tender. Find someone else that has a proven track record, or at least has experience in the event space. Because I think from both a production and an event perspective, there were a lot of things that fell short on that one. I think a lot of people.
Is there a good reason why girls couldn't join a boys' team?
No, it's been done before.
Has it?
Yeah. In the Southeast Asian countries, it happens quite often.
Right.
That's true. There's a team called Myth made in Thailand.
Yeah, with Jenny.
Yeah, that has a player. Ginny,
yeah. And so she's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
There was Razy when she was in Australia before she went back to China. And so it's doable, but it's very difficult, and I'm sure you can imagine there's a lot of issues with them working together.
Yep, I hear that in scrims as well.
Yeah.
Barriers to entry, obviously a little bit greater there as well. I think that was probably a lot of and having run female events before myself, I think everyone that played in those events recognized that it was just a stepping stone for them to play in mixed teams. In that
eventually.
they all wanted, the ones that wanted to play at a top level all recognized that it was just a stepping stone for them to find a team.
In fact, if it isn't just for Carnage, the majority of the females in the community will have played on a male team or a mixed team.
Yep.
In the amateur divisions and whatnot. But there's nothing at the top level at the moment. Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, it's unfortunate.
There is one woman who has won a national in a mixed team.
Oh yeah,
White Girl Wasted.
that is true.
She has too.
Formerly of Renegades.
Extreme Land.
Formerly of Renegades.
Yeah. So she won that Extremes Land national qualifier, subbing in for Dick Stacey. So it can be done.
Right.
And that was against a full order roster as well.
I think I saw what was it, a 3v1 clutch come out.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, I think that went.
That might be why
viral.
Emag retired. I remember watching that. That was so funny. Because he was up on triple, and then Ash walked underneath him, and then he was like, "Where is she?" And then she was like, "Oh shit, he's up there." And
it came down to a 1v1. That's right.
Yeah, that was funny. Oh, good times. On that point, though, there are some really good female and trans players over in NA who have been sort of making the rounds. And they've got a much better, I guess, grassroots pathway, because for ESEA, at least, they have open, intermediate, main... whatever, and then Premier is like MDL, but they just have like so many different leagues just because they have just a larger pool of people to pull it all from. So it's not easier to climb, but it's easier to find a team.
Leagues, those leagues. There's no...
Yeah. Well, there's no straight, like, just male leagues, is there? Like, I don't think there is.
Every league is open.
Yeah.
By principle.
Yeah.
It's just,
Carnage Fem, I know that they do play qualifiers as well.
Well, they've played in... I think it was CGI at the time.
I don't know if they've made.
Yeah, they
have they
played
made
CGI for a bit. Yeah.
Okay, they made CGI.
They qualified for CGI because they won CGM or came top 2.
Yeah.
And then they played a couple of games of CGI, but I think their other tournaments took precedence, so they dropped out.
Okay.
But yeah, look, it's doable. And obviously, the biggest problem is getting the women in that aren't in teams because they're just on their own.
Yep.
And so that's why I have, like, even on Instafrag, we, like, pretty much will do anything to make sure that they feel comfortable.
I think that's the biggest thing, as I said, is like just that entry point. Because otherwise, we all know that just gaming in general traditionally has been a very toxic space. As well. So I think
it's grown up a lot though, because I remember when we first were doing it, it was all teenagers, and you can imagine life there. But now most of them are young adults. Most of the gamers and professional players. So.
And obviously, general industry professionalization has helped there as well. So I think, obviously Intel Challenge is a big loss, but now it just places more importance on grassroots initiative. We've spoken endlessly.
It's a big loss, but we don't know
Yeah.
what Intel's up to. They could have
Correct.
something else up their sleeve. Hopefully they do, because need more events in that space.
Definitely agree. But yeah, as we said, it will, more eyes now will turn to grassroots initiatives as a result of this. I know there are not in the CS:GO space, but there are some other leagues in the works as well. I know there is a female Rainbow Six league as well, and we know how well Ubisoft work to support their products. So I'm keen to see how that develops, because I think there could be a few learnings there for other titles. But other than that, it looks pretty barren on the horizon. But I will now segue into
again.
where we have the jingle traditionally for our sponsor.
I can't do it.
Yeah, you're on the spot. You got to do it. You got to do it.
What jingle?
You got to do it.
For the mailbag? For the pickle bet?
For pickle bet.
Pickle bet.
What jingle?
The jingle.
Never talked about
do
it.
the jingle.
Do
the jingle.
You're being hard to work with. We have not worked on a jingle.
Okay, we will give special thank you now to our sponsor in Picklebet.
Picklebet.
There it is.
Oh.
Someone finally.
That's not a jingle. That's us just creeping.
Either-
I can't whisper it.
I work so hard on this. I'm uncooperative now. We'll give special thank you to our sponsors, Picklebet, who have, as we said, rebranded. Previously known as Skrilla, the artist previously known as Skrilla, have been supporting us since day dot, and also other esports grassroots initiatives in Australia, and they allow us to bring you so much content as well. And they are Australia's first esports betting website. So if you are in that space, check them out. And if you do gamble, remember, gamble responsibly. Now, I'm going to segue into...
Gotta love them pickles.
I can't segue after that. It's just a straight handbrake turn.
Where do you pull that from?
I don't know.
We didn't workshop
We
that.
can eat pickles. You can't eat Skrilla. Well, maybe. I don't know. Debatable.
Drench me in brine. But, Mac, can you record that later on? That'll just be recorded.
Like I said,
No
can we
worries.
workshop this? I'm not going straight into a pickle jingle without a workshop. We
Really?
can do better. We can do better than...
I believe in you.
You were my guy. You were
I'm on
the go-to.
No. What?
Come on.
It's not happening. Pickle. Bet.
Well, either
You
way,
put me in a
just like
pickle.
Auto, you will have to use your imagination. That's right. Our next topic, obviously, during the week, we saw the retirement of long-time top player in the scene, Imagination.
Yep.
Is needing to be used. Imagine, as he was known
imagine.
as.
Yeah,
on
one of
HLTV.
Nats.
Mm-hmm.
One of Nats.
I gifted him a clutch one time. He accidentally killed me. And it became an internet sensation.
Mm.
Beautiful.
Now,
Source was a crap game.
well, you can no debates there from me, mate. I'll happily back you up on that
It was a
one.
fluke.
But obviously, having a player with tremendous experience in a roster that has been, I think it's safe to say, under pressure.
Yeah.
Not only from expectations placed on them, but also due to the fact that they've obviously had some veterans playing in that roster. They've started to bring in some new talent as well. By all accounts, and new talent's doing fantastic. But it's a big loss for a team like that to have a player who was also, I believe, in the IGL role. For them, just
he was the backbone.
Decide to go
the team, So yeah, it's a big deal for them. Obviously, he was heavily tied in with Nathan Briffa, Inve, which I guess you could say was the management / coach.
We travelled, pretty much to every event with them.
For Order the whole time, and then we had him in Immunity towards the end, and he transitioned from Immunity to Order with Imagine. So he's been there since the start. I don't remember seeing him announce that his departure, but I presumably because they were pretty much a package deal.
Right, so Inve is gone as well? Or is that... No?
I'll find this one out. I doubt it though.
Did you make that noise?
So audio issues here.
So you can edit it later and be like, look, I maybe I'm reading betwing the lines.
Spent so long on the audio.
I saw the announcement today. Well, I'll let you get to it. I won't. I'll let you tuck into it.
I will. But obviously, we were quite taken by the timing of it because it seemed as though they had some competitions to play in, etc. Obviously, they didn't qualify for IM Katowice. Would have been a big disappointment to the team. But there were a lot of events for them on the horizon, and having such a
getting Ricky
player
as well. So finally having a 5-man lineup again.
But having such a storied and important piece of the puzzle, pull up stumps. Not great timing for them. But they did today announce that there was some suspicion around what Tux was doing post Chiefs. That's all been announced by Order that he's now coaching the roster. Obviously, you've worked with Tux prior as well. Do you think he adds a lot of value to that roster as a coach?
Of course, yeah, lots of experience.
He's learnt, obviously, effective communication as well. And we were just saying that that's really important for a coach. I think it's safe to say that Rick did quite well in his trials, as I understand.
Yeah.
It's been a while since anyone I know has had to trial for a team, but he was obviously on a trial period.
He didn't even have the .T on his name or anything, so...
In brackets, T. That's traditionally how we used to differentiate players that were trialing on teams. They had to tag,
make it clear to the opposition to that,
it's like a trainee badge.
We've got a graduate on our team. It's like we're a bit handicapped. And then when you win and you see the T turn off, it's like, oh, he must have done pretty well. He's in.
He's done all right. Now the interesting thing is that still leaves them with 4 players because Tux is obviously a coach, not a player.
He played for them today, though.
Did he?
Well, he's playing at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So,
really? He's lining up in his first official.
Well, maybe he's played now.
Maybe they've played. Have a look-see.
Yeah, Mac can do it on the phone. Amazing what he can do on the phone.
It's amazing what he can do.
It's a crazy device. It does many things.
I do believe they did say that Jira was to sub for upcoming games.
I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work. I probably need to ask.
No, Jira's playing right now.
Jira's playing?
Yeah, so Tux isn't playing. He must be
but
coaching.
even Tux is a coach, so I've just got to figure out how it's all going to go down. Because I remember, like we were saying about iBuyPower players, how they couldn't coach. So I wonder if
they can't coach during the event, I believe.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, to be coached outside of the event, I mean, this is great for Order, if that's possible, but I'm not sure how it's going to work because the other player who was banned wasn't even allowed to be a streamer for an organisation. So
right.
Really?
Swag, yeah.
They were different to back.
No, that was different.
They?
Yeah,
yes,
that was the big difference.
That's why I need to just figure out the difference there because there was the match fixing and then there's VAC bans,
which 2 different categories, right? Mm-hmm. But funnily enough, under the same umbrella because it seems as though Valve obviously
it's easy to do.
It's easy to do, but it's also a blanket approach to it.
It's easy just to
indefinite.
Go bang, set it, forget
Full plug.
Yeah.
Yeah, which obviously, for me though, I feel as though players, not only of that caliber, but also have been. Let me just rephrase. Players of that caliber have been banned unjustly for indefinitely.
Yeah.
the fact that they've
No
just had no recourse,
Yep.
no appeals avenues available to them, and a lot
I
of
couldn't
these,
believe it when I heard it. Yeah.
a lot of these
It
infractions,
doesn't happen
right?
in sport, does it?
No, it does not. But well, you think of drug testing and athletes who cheated, blatantly cheated, and they're out for 2 years if they're lucky, 4 years maximum. Sometimes a life ban.
A couple of months if it's cricket.
Yeah, that's well. Let's not go there. But you get the opportunity to recover and redeem yourself, and there's no opportunity here in esports, which is a real shame.
Yeah, I mean,
Especially when they're talking about young kids often.
correct. I think that's the point that I want to make is
such
the
as
fact that
Texter.
players like Texter, Tux
Yeah.
were
Not
Couldn't believe
even
it.
of the age of consent.
not exactly. They were at an age where they basically
In the legal system in
juveniles.
Australia, you would not be able to be convicted because you're under 25.
So for them to obviously receive that treatment is, has been a huge detriment to obviously the scene and the teams and that they've played in as well.
Yeah, basically every team in Australia would have loved to have had Texter and Tux on
Absolutely.
on a competitive roster.
Correct.
Particularly there was that
And
time where
Ferg as a
Tux
coach.
was like the best player in Australia. Ferg
Yep.
as well, yeah. So yeah, it's really hurt us a lot. We had some really good players back then.
Yeah, correct.
So who knows what the rest of the world had?
And hopefully in time they realise the error of their ways, Valve, and at least there is some sort of recourse, or
Well, everyone else
appeals
seems to have caught on.
sanction.
So DreamHack, Flashpoint now they're called.
Mm.
They all allow VAC players. So it's just minors and even IEM. I think you're allowed VAC players.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you are.
it's literally just Valve
It's just
sanctioned
Valve
tournaments.
minors and majors. Yeah.
That's why Chief was able to continue last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully things change there. But yeah, the interesting thing for me is obviously we know Jira as a former Avant player is an IGL.
Yep.
It's a difficult role to transition into if you're subbing for a team and as an IGL.
Yeah.
Will he keep that role, do you think, or will it be someone else from Order that'll step up?
I think it's safe to say that I think he will keep that role. I think he will. But he might not
Look
be.
who's in order. Ali's done it before.
Right.
When he was in Chiefs a very long time ago, just for a bit. Ricky wouldn't do it ever. Then unless he's developed a lot overseas, I don't think that.
Surely Carlo could.
No,
No?
no,
He can't?
no. I don't think so. I just don't think so. Just because of the way he works.
Have you checked your spam
the communication? No.
for an email?
No. But
They don't want you back. Okay.
No.
Too toxic, I heard.
What, me or Carlo? Because me, I can agree. Carlo, there's nothing toxic about him. But it takes a certain personality to lead. And there's some of the guys when I played with them, or in my experience, they didn't have that. Now Valiant's maybe, I don't know.
Valve doesn't talk. Maybe
Well,
he's getting better at doing that.
They got
but-
a whole team of people that don't talk Mac. So I think Jiro will be the one staying as the IGL if
Right.
unless Tux is to find a way of doing it from the sideline.
Maybe sub just means like on trial. Like that's why
Well, they
he's
just
there
had
at the
Ricky on
moment.
trial, so they used the on trial. So what does that mean? Does on trial mean you're
I
actually?
don't know. Well, maybe they're still looking for an IGL. Like who bloody knows?
Well,
To be
they could-
honest, yeah.
I'd like to see them try and get like a Southeast Asian player or something, like Splashkey or something.
I saw you
like
say that earlier.
Yeah, I think if we could just...
But how many more AWPers does that team need?
Well,
Yeah, that's the thing.
Guys, you can never have enough. Ziwu, simple, huh? Top 2 players in the world. Kenny S, you can never have enough AWPers. I
Yeah, but
remember
on the one
Australis.
team.
Australis was like device AWPing, Dupree AWPing, Glade AWPing. Like, who cares?
It'll bring Train back into the meta in the Australian scene.
Wow.
Maybe they'll play
There
it a
you
little
go.
more.
The thing that I found most interesting about it was, did you see the HTT article that came and went really quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's first sources.
that article said that EMAG was going to take a role behind the scenes as an analyst. And he had that on good authority through a leak to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And then EMAG commented on it and said, I don't know where you're getting this from, but I'm definitely not doing that, or in a very polite way.
The analyst for
And-
order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's like, I'm definitely not going to be the analyst or something. And then, and then the post got deleted.
I heard
Benji was raging in bloody Discord with me. It was hilarious.
I heard that Order are responsible for their own leaks, all of their own leaks.
Ooh,
Yeah, they deliberately put that info out there.
there you go.
Not just in that instance, but
Why would
in
you
other
do that?
instances as well.
Why would
For
you
example,
self-sabotage?
if Tux joined the ECA roster, someone from Order would just point that out.
Yeah.
I guess in that situation though, it's like
It's like, oh, look at our
it's
ECA
out in the
roster.
blue. Someone's going to see it very shortly and then start making speculation. So if we're just honest and throw it out there to someone, then
I
Define the
think you
less
can also do
speculation.
that as well. Like you can test the waters a little bit to see how far something gets that you've spread yourself. Right?
That's what chiefs do all the time.
That's
When-
what politicians do all the time.
yeah.
Just see who notices it, and when they notice it, just be like, oh, yeah. Here's the announcement for our roster.
or just not announce it at all.
Yeah. Just to spite people, you know?
I want to see how switched on the scene really is, though. So next time an org makes a change to an ECA roster, I want someone to put a stopwatch on and see just how quick someone's on it.
Yeah, that 60 minutes approach. That
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just
look,
without
to be
Tracy.
honest, grim, very grim.
Yeah, leave her out of it.
The next point that I want to talk about is we saw also during this is a little bit more international than obviously something directly affects this region to a degree, but was we saw the Louvre agreement signed between the 13 founding partners in ESL Pro Tour events, and it basically provided some clarity around some points that were up for question, but also left a lot of questions remaining to be answered as well. So just to give people insight into what that agreement is that essentially it was 13 teams putting pen to paper as the founding partners of ESL's Pro Tour, and with that comes a commitment that they will play an X amount of events. I think they're only allowed to opt out of 2 event invites in that calendar year. So pretty much, with that being said, is locking them in to ESL's
And it's
event
all,
schedule.
media rights, sponsors, everything like that. ESL's going
Correct.
to act as an agent on behalf of these organizations
Yeah.
and profit share, basically.
Correct. So
revenue share. I
in that
guess.
agreement, it talks about Pro League, it talks about their circuit events as well,
Yep.
what the team's obligations are to those, what ESL's obligations are, talking about the governance as well.
Basically, ESL's commitments are the league is free. You
Well,
know?
the interesting thing about the fact that the governance part, WESA has no involvement in that.
Yeah.
It's just seemingly WESA's just disappeared.
Yeah.
So
It's just CSPA.
it's just the Players Association.
Yeah. So
Now that has governance, a seat at that table.
So it's also like just the big boys looking out for themselves. But also, if you have a look at the bottom, there's an interesting bit there about the Intel Grand Slam. It's best efforts to continue that.
Is that information on
So it's not a
the
firm
site
commitment.
you're looking at, though? Is that all super up to date, or is that
That
when
is-
it was released?
That is
the other time.
the agreement that has been uploaded to the ESL website. It's available on PDF.
The official
Okay.
agreement.
The official agreement.
Right,
So
okay.
Latest version.
Is
Yeah.
this agreement something that's new that other organisers haven't put out before?
Yeah.
Has it not been
Yeah,
public?
this is
Oh,
the first time
yeah.
there's been like a
Right.
soft exclusivity partnering of teams, not
Right.
not just saying you're invited, come play in our tournament. They're
Right.
saying you're part of this.
And here's the
business
rules.
Now. Yep.
Right.
Here's the rules. Here's the rev share breakdown in that, like they talk about what the obligations are
Yeah.
from ESL and
There'll be a series
the
of
events are.
tournaments with $200,000 prize
Right.
pool, yada yada yada.
Mm.
It even talks about player benefits as well.
Yeah, well, everything is free. That's
So yeah,
basically it.
essentially everything is there. But I mean, transparency like this we haven't seen.
It's got to be a good thing, isn't
It's
it?
got to be a good thing, right? Obviously, there's a few questions around, what other teams are going to be involved and how those other teams are going to
How
be
do you become
involved.
a partnered team? What do you have to? Can you just join a team? That's partnered already. What happens to the players that leave partnered teams? All that sort of stuff.
Correct, because there always used to be that point around, if a team qualified for Pro League, did the spot belong to the
The team or the
organisation
players,
or the group of players? I think it's pretty clear now that it
It's the
belongs to
org.
the org.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're paying the big bucks.
more so than ever before.
Correct. So, I think that sort of puts that piece to bed. In that, what's happening?
The Wi-Fi's playing up.
Oh no!
Oh no!
You've killed it.
Someone reset the router.
Oh no! Look, To be honest, that's a YouTube special, mate. You have to tune into our YouTube to see what happened.
Oh, someone's stringing across the room.
Again, Mac.
Yeah. That
Last time it was just for a coffee.
Lucky it's not live, guys. Otherwise, we'd be cooked.
But this is why we need a live producer for those sorts of things. They're the ones that can run around in the background and make sure things.
There's the router gets restarted. There's no fixing that,
Hey, Jess, do you want to upgrade from being the spectator in the kitchen?
Yeah, would you like to join the?
Would you like to be the producer?
Thanks, Jess.
We need you to fix the wallpaper.
It's not a matter of what's wrong. It's a matter of, do you want a promotion? You don't.
We'll pay you double.
Yes. Yeah, we'll pay you double. It's an internship.
12 months long.
Yeah, esports internship.
With a little T at the end, just in case. Just subbing.
It's a trial. It's a trial.
FLE. Yeah. Chromecast up top right.
Jessic_Park-T. Was it .T?
That's
Dot
correct.
T, yep.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm a big proponent of the .T. I'm part of the .T crew.
Now, as we said, there's a few more questions. Thank you very much, Jess, our guest producer. Done a fantastic job making sure it's on trial. She's doing all right. She's doing pretty well.
Might keep her on.
Yeah. There's obviously a few more announcements to come out of that. That obviously there's still 11 spots up for grabs. As potentially partner teams, it says that up to 16 partner teams, will, for example, be part of the league entity under governance. So there's room for 16 partner teams. They've signed 13. So there's at least 3 more that will have a seat at the government's table. Who haven't signed, have they? No, they haven't actually. Yeah.
So MRBR will be one of them.
They're not top 10 at the moment, though, are they?
No, they're shizer.
Terrible performances.
NRP's in there already, aren't they?
Yep. I think the other really interesting thing to know about this is that a lot of the concern was actually about the rankings and how they would work. It actually states here that they are working with HLTV.org and other key industry stakeholders to improve upon the world ranking methodology.
That's still ours.
To create a unified system that, where was it here? Obviously, they will improve upon ESL's methodology.
The problem with the...
Brand neutral is the term that they used. Brand neutral. Because HLTV wasn't brand neutral, right?
No, it wasn't really. You'd go to their website and it'd be filled with advertising for all sorts of things. But
in this terms, but correct though. In terms of brand neutral, it wasn't favouring, Flashpoint's leagues. It wasn't favouring ESL's leagues. It wasn't placing.
HLTV was brand neutral.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
This is just brand.
Exactly. Yeah. They have basically said that.
I've never liked ESL's
they're working
ranking.
on a brand neutral one.
I've never liked ESL's ranking because it was always about whether or not it was a major tournament or an insignificant tournament or whatnot. You could have tournaments that didn't even have points associated to them, even though you'd play them and, beat Cloud9. Not enough international teams there. Don't care. Here's 1 point. Here's this other team that's stationed in America, not as good as you. We're going to invite them because they have more points. So it's a crap system. Hopefully with this league in itself, it'll fix the points over time, but as it's stood all this time, I've really hated it. It's not good for grassroots.
As long as the Pro Tour events aren't disproportionately weighted compared to other events outside the circuit.
So
I think
if
that's
you're
the
in
thing.
a
As long as there's parity between comparable events.
Because the reason why they don't like HLTVs as well is because it's too volatile, is what they say. And the only reason it's too volatile is because, teams don't perform every single tournament. And they want it to be that if they do this...
Or they miss tournaments.
Or they miss tournaments. But they want it so that if you are going to an ESL tournament, every time you go to an ESL tournament, that tournament you have this amount of points and you need to get into the top something to get these amount of points.
Yeah.
And so you're creating an environment where you care more about this tournament than the other tournaments.
Which is good.
For them.
Bring up the level of competition.
For them. So, Flashpoint, other tournaments, etc. I've got ESL next week. Sorry, guys, we're gonna come to this one, but we're not gonna give it our all because we got the points to worry about over here in this other league.
Yeah, the higher weighted competitions.
So that's a real concern.
But if they're doing Flashpoint anyway, doesn't Flashpoint have a system in place where if you drop out of the top 20 teams or whatever it is, then you get fined something?
Yeah.
Wasn't that a whole thing with the whole flashpoint?
I don't think you get fined, but yeah, you might get like withheld something if it looks like you're tanking. They've had to do that because of this.
Yeah, okay.
And you used to see it in 1.6 a lot when there would be, WCG would come around, but then there'd be like this huge other tournament, or WCG was pretty much the best, wasn't it, in 1.6?
WCG was pretty much the pinnacle.
But
event.
Basically the way it is now with Dota is there's one tournament in a year called the International, and that's all anyone ever cares about. And so it's always been to try and avoid that sort of situation.
Dota's also cut down on their majors.
Yeah, but Dota also have an entire circuit that leads into the international. Like all those majors have points systems associated with the majors.
Because they'll do anything to not have a random Chinese or Indonesian team just rock up and win. So that's why they had to go down that circuit path.
Yeah, you've got to play circuits throughout the year.
I'd be happy if the TOs got themselves organised so there weren't clashes between events as well.
Yeah, well, we'll see how this year goes because the events are thinning.
That might help.
That is true. Yeah, but you say that right until one event just comes in over the top of everyone else.
Then IEM Melbourne is just like, player break. We're after that.
Don't confuse that one in the edit, mate.
No, he won't. That was ages away.
I just got some confirmation. Oh, well, it's not actual confirmation.
Confirmation.
Don't worry. Continue.
So, the next segment relies on
Put your phones down, boys.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
That wasn't even work related. It's only because you're going to see something about Chiefs. What would you do if you saw something about Chiefs and I just went like that? And just...
I'm not involved with Chiefs. Why would I care?
Well, maybe.
Yeah, Ian.
Well,
you got to catch up, Ian.
you don't have any love for old teams?
Of course I do.
Oh, okay.
My son works for them.
They're playing order anyway, not even playing advanced. Who cares?
Yep.
There we go. But it is now time.
Whoa,
No?
not quite yet.
What have you got for us,
You
mate?
have we have completely forgotten about the, we've been talking about roadmaps, right? Did you see the R6 roadmap? We're getting a major.
Hey.
Everyone was saying that, but I couldn't actually see the
It
words.
wasn't until 2021.
Yeah, I know that, but it didn't say like the R6
Did we just become
major.
best friends?
John Stamos. So that's pretty good, though. That is pretty good. I'm very happy about that.
So it's not until November 2021, though. So I think we've got a bit of time to talk
Does it
about
say
it.
Sydney, though?
We've got a
It
bit of
doesn't
time.
say Sydney.
It says Melbourne.
I said we're getting a major.
That's right. You hail from Melbourne.
Does it say Melbourne?
It actually says Asia Pacific. It's an
it could be
Asia
anywhere.
Pacific major.
Thank you.
APAC major.
APAC major, it's highly likely that it's going to be in Australia.
I saw people going, "We're getting a major," and then I looked at the thing and I'm like, "No, it doesn't say Australia." Like, if it said Australia, I couldn't give a shit
Yeah,
where
it
it is.
said,
But if it says
Australian
APAC,
capital.
it says APAC, it could be the Philippines.
It could be, but like Ubi's here.
But don't you think there'll be some pressure to sort of put some more events back into Asia with all the coronavirus? They need to build up some work over there,
True.
Oh, geez.
Well, I think Japan also have
By
a very
2021,
strong
that'll be gone though.
hopefully. But they still might want to
Japan,
build up the tourism
Japan
back
is-
here.
we've already
where-
lost, guys. Forget it. Edit that out, man.
They already did a big one at Japan,
Yep.
didn't
So
they?
they've got precedent. Boom. Done. They've
But
got a
to
really
get
good
that
team.
to work, because esports in Japan is weird because you can't offer prize pools.
Oh,
Is that a Japan thing? Because you can't win money.
that's Korea.
So you,
Oh wait, no.
no, I'm pretty
Sorry.
sure it's Japan. Because I remember there was like loopholes that they had to sort of bounce through to get it to work. And I remember Dota was trying to get something working there as well, and they had to try to find the loopholes. So
yeah,
I think
it already sounds too hard. I'll
instead
just
of it being
do it in
an
Australia.
award for winning, I think
a
you need to
stipend.
structure it like
Yeah.
everyone gets paid for like the days they play. So like if you make it to the semis and they have semis on a
Right.
different day to the grand final, so you're getting paid a wage, I think, is the way
How's
it needs to
going to
work.
work with the tournament that's happening before the Olympic Games then? Before Tokyo?
I don't know. Maybe the
Because
same
that's-
loophole.
Do you get paid? Do you get paid in the Olympics though? Isn't it not just?
Well, there's prize money. There's a lot of prize money.
Oh, is there though? Because you can't be a professional athlete in the
unless you
Olympics.
play tennis, golf.
Hang on, that was a rule about 30 years ago. It's changed since the 1970s.
Has it?
Yes, it has. Absolutely has.
Showing your age there, Ian.
Yeah,
Good on you.
okay.
But anyway, I'd just like to say that, UB have done a great
Tennis-
job, or R6 rather, have done a great job, showing their roadmap 2 years ahead of time.
Yeah, 2 years. That's actually a long way for a lot of other games.
That's
Yeah.
the benefit of
To try and-
franchising.
True.
Yeah.
Or is
Yeah.
it franchising or is it
Yeah.
just having the developer take lead?
Well, yeah. Also having a good developer with a good investment in the game.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be learned. from Ubisoft.
I mean, there's no
Yeah.
reason why Riot and all those couldn't do it. Epic Games, but obviously they're just
Well,
not as good.
Well, I don't think
They're motivated.
they're as motivated to.
Yeah.
I think the thing that separates Ubisoft is the fact that those Riot exist, right?
If you wanted to play,
Riot aren't putting a lot of effort into
Yeah.
developing that ecosystem. Why? Because they've already got one of the most popular games in the world.
Yeah.
Whereas Rainbow Six, they have to do something
popular.
with Ubisoft. Ubisoft have to do something to try and
keep it going.
kick it up a notch every time.
It's not
right?
like Counter-Strike where
They're
people
competing.
just keep coming.
They're competing against Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
They're competing against Call of Duty. They're competing against
Project
other
Ace.
games. Well, even then, but
Eventually.
like
Well,
even
start
then,
playing
they've got to do
Rainbow
something.
Six now, and in 2 years or in a year, you might be good enough to play at the APAC.
Could
major.
people in Counter-Strike, for instance, transfer to Rainbow Six easily?
Absolutely, yeah.
without VAC bans.
I think a lot of people did.
Yes.
Right.
That's sort of
the
like-
way it
it's a lot
goes.
of players that like went to R6 were the ones that definitely had some very strong fundamentals in Counter-Strike, but just wanted to, couldn't get out of that sort of lower tier, and they were just like,
Basically,
give
like
up, start somewhere else.
What I said about Project A.
That might be attractive,
Yeah. Basically,
Yeah.
if you can't find your way in CS, you already have the skills because CS is very demanding. You go to another FPS, you're already
You'll
got a
be a
leg
king.
up. Yes, basically.
Yeah, so that's good.
It's like
And
when anyone went to Source.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the other
And
thing
then
we
when anyone went from Source to H1Z1.
yeah.
anyway, now that you're done with your little,
Yeah, your turn.
reminiscing, we do tend to forget about R6 a lot on this podcast. I'm
We
just gonna
do.
put that out there.
We don't have much knowledge on
We've got, is it the major at the moment? Is that what's going on?
the
It's done.
Invitational. Yeah, it's
Invitational.
done,
So the
yeah.
Invitational, it's done. But Fnatic made a really deep run in that. I think
They
they
did.
caused a couple of upsets. I saw.
One upset.
Was it only one?
Yep.
I thought they made it.
They beat
really
G2,
far.
who were the ex-champions.
Yep.
And then they lost. And they bowed out.
Right.
Pretty,
That's
pretty
a top
ASAP
four though,
after
right? Was it top four?
that. No.
No.
They lost in the quarters.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just know I saw Dev blown up on Twitter.
I blew up as well because it was a huge win to beat G2, but then
Yeah.
that was all it was.
Okay.
Yeah, so they knocked out the previous champs, G2, and then they lost in their next game, which is against a random.
They played their
org
grand
called
final.
BSD something. Can't remember their name because it's like
BDSM?
No, it's not an org that we deal with often.
You have to beat that one out of you, mate.
But yeah, it's good for Fnatic as they've been supporting Australian esports in this Aussie team.
Yeah.
But yeah, need to see a big win somewhere eventually. Yeah.
I think the fact that obviously they have attracted the support of one of the biggest organisations in the world, Fnatic, speaks to the recognition that
Are we still going to say it started here? Because
the guy that founded it is he registered the business in Australia
Yeah.
for tax purposes, right?
Yeah.
Serious?
we'll claim it.
Is he in New
We'll
Zealand?
claim it.
No.
It's not a scaffolding business, but the thing is, right? The fact that there's a recognition that talent comes from this region that competes on the world stage has been that leap of faith's been made by Fnatic.
They had a pretty good run at the
Even
early
wildcard as
tournaments.
well.
Yeah.
Locally they give Fnatic a huge
Run for
nudge.
their money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Basically like
competitions.
Renegades,
Yeah.
but for Rainbow Six. And now Magnet, one of the players who's, people seem to like, he's got some sort of gymnastics background as well. He's taken a interest in learning Japanese, so he's mobilized like the entire Japanese fan base as well.
Right.
So he's
Smart.
doing really well there. Yeah, that's huge.
Tap into overseas audiences.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because
Is he a weeb or does he just like Japanese culture?
Is there a difference? So basically, he's learnt Japanese for his Twitter. So his Twitter is just all Japanese now. So
Right. So he's
converted.
Alienated his Australian audience?
Well, the rest of the team.
it's
can
funny.
do that.
Someone called Magnet is polarizing like that. Right?
Yeah.
Very good.
Anyway, so yeah.
But he's attracting new audiences.
Great,
so.
great brand
Stop
move.
it, you're killing me.
You make me
Guys.
very negative right now.
Ha, 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 ha.
Oh dear.
What?
Time to move on.
Anyway, so that was a great brand move from him. And don't forget, Japan, like we were saying, they have a huge Rainbow Six fan base because they have a great team themselves, and he's stealing their fans.
He's getting ready for 2021.
Yeah, well, yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
already tapped
yeah,
into
there you
the.
Ah,
He's already ready for the APAC major.
Well, leaks almost 2 years
he's
ahead
going to
of
be a
time.
great draw card.
See, Ubisoft are responsible for their own leaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do they do it to themselves?
Okay,
yeah?
announcing plans. Any other
No.
Points of
That
interest?
was enough to interject in with
Awesome.
extra
No,
topics.
I like that. But it is now
Current.
time.
Don't talk esports on the esports podcast. What are you talking about, man?
It is now time for a segment, which I'm not going to ask Ian to sing the jingle for because it's already been done.
That's right, Mackie Mac.
Keep a straight
You know what
face.
time it is. It's time to reach into that mailbag.
Reaching deep.
Questions that you want to know the answers to most with Max Mailbag.
That's right. It's Max Mailbag. I'm getting smoother at that.
It's pretty
Mac.
good. I like the end part of it, actually. Yeah.
It's pretty
I
smooth.
feel,
Leave
I
it.
feel like you need to bring the voice up a little bit because it's just way too deep.
Sorry, I did that
That's
without any
genetics.
editing. I'll up the pitch.
I'm
next time.
impressed. There you go. All right, let's get on to the questions. I think we have a couple of nice ones today. Where you got 4 good ones. So
They're all good questions.
they are all good questions. So I'm just going to throw them under the bus. So at Tux403 has said, from Anonymous, who had the all-round best blokes, Chiefs 2019 or Avant 2020? We already know the answer, so don't ask. Well, why are you bloody asking?
You didn't read the whole question,
I
did you?
believe this one is directed at you,
To
Michelle.
me, moi, like a mother with all her sons, she loves all her children equally.
What a cop out.
It's true.
But-
love them all.
Like a son
Dodging
and
that
all their
controversy.
mothers, you know you're the favourite. Okay,
The question-
so just relax.
The follow-up question to that is, do Avant currently have an interest in cricket?
No, unfortunately.
Ah, see, that's where Chiefs might have a bit of an upper hand.
They might have a bit of an advantage there.
How's that?
Cricket fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sort of.
Okay.
She's an avid cricket fan.
I am.
How's that?
Out.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I think it's time. I think it's time. We're going to have our first walk-off because I'll do it. It's only the bloody mailbag. It's not even my part anyway.
Oh, damn it. You're out of order, Ian.
All
Anyway,
right, cool. I think it was
he's pinch hitting over here.
Oh.
Chiefs last year because they came to the after party after Zowie.
At our
Ah,
place.
yeah.
Some of them did.
Some of them.
Well, Avant haven't had a chance to do that yet.
No, they were there.
Oh, were they?
They just all went home.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
so that was
Yeah, Vant was sad.
a bit
Kids.
disappointing. They got knocked out first, so that was very unfortunate for them.
It's a long way for the
Um,
party.
Cool. We will move on. MJ has asked, having a tilter of a day, can I request Ian does ASMR saying something nice about me, please? He misses your face.
What do you
Misses
mean?
or
I'm
messes?
Misses.
Okay.
I'm on YouTube every week on the Not Another podcast, so you're also welcome to join us on the couch at any time, MJ, but I don't know how to ASMR. Did I ASMR
Do you want
last
a drink
week?
of the water bottle?
No, but I've got to say something nice about MJ. I mean, that's pretty tough to do.
The unenviable task, is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm actually really scared of now that I think about it is that he's going to can the phrase and record it and keep it and just listen
And put
to
it into a segment.
Yeah.
Why don't you rip one of the coasters?
No, I'm not.
No, you got to say something nice about
He
him.
wants me to say
Yeah,
something
right.
nice.
Can
So
you
he
do
basically
anything?
wants you to whisper.
Yeah. Whisper nicely something nice about MJ.
MJ, there's no better guy in esports. He'll do anything for you. Even order you buttered chicken during a tournament that you're just watching because you're the coach.
That's right. He's second to none.
I've got goosebumps. Was that we're going to call it? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
All right,
that's enough
cool.
for me.
That was enough ASMR. Lots of
I'm
whispering.
never saying a nice thing about another person again, by the way. That was the most uncomfortable experience of my life.
Yeah, no, it
So was
really
that-
is
was that-
hard to be nice.
Was that out of character for him?
Don't say a word.
Well, there you go. Does anyone else want to ASMR at MJ?
That was under duress.
No, you good?
I did.
You good? I'm fine.
I said second to none.
Yeah,
there you go.
it killed me.
Well, moving forward, we do have Annette Potter who has asked, is psychology any different between real life, traditional sports, and esports?
No is the answer. More communication, however, in esports.
Okay. What about real life? Is that
Yeah, so the skills are exactly the same.
okay?
Yeah, the range of skills. So on my tweet this morning, goal setting, visualization, self-talk, they're much the same.
It's not an exam. It's all right.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So if you went and did
Just
like
coursework.
just a psych, I guess degree at uni, you could just sort of branch off and specialize.
They don't teach those things specifically, but if you were interested in psychology and had an interest in sport, you would make yourself aware of those skills, and
Okay.
yeah, you'd be able to adapt them pretty easily.
Yeah. And what would be the pathway? Do you actually like start at uni
For
for psych?
psych, yeah, so you need to do an undergraduate degree in recognised psychology course at university. Then you have to do a 4th year where you'd not specialised yet. You do a grad dip or a grad dip usually, and then a master's in psychology, and that's where you'd have your first chance to specialise if you wanted to. So you have to do 6 years of uni before you even can start, and then you've got 240 hours of supervised practice after that,
I know.
and then you can call yourself a psychologist.
I've
But
got
that's not a
Right.
sports psychologist.
funny story
So-
actually, because some of the
have to be
guys I
mad.
used to play CS Counter-Strike 1.6.
CS Counter-Strike.
CS Counter-Strike 1.6.
Counter-Strike.
Yes, 1.6. With, I think, at least 2 of them have done their masters in psychology now.
Right.
Out
It's a
of
long
like-
haul.
It is.
And there's not guaranteed jobs.
No.
And in Australia, you're encouraged to be more a clinical psychologist as opposed to any other type of psychologist. It's a very unfair system. So I don't usually encourage people to go into sports psychology unless they're, masochist, because it's hard to earn a living as a sports psychologist. You can't do it full time usually. So, like myself, you have to have a job on the side, and you work with athletes.
There's got to be sport, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's nothing to.
Funded sport usually the ones that can afford to pay for your services.
Exactly.
Which is where
I mean, we're
esports
great.
runs into issues.
Esports are
And this is where esports is right now, and like where sport was 30 years ago. So where the amateurism sort of started to become more professional, that's where esports is, in my eye. That's where I can see we're at the moment in esports.
That's right.
I've lived through it, so I'm old enough to know that.
You've seen the cycle. You've seen
Exactly.
the cycle.
Well, there you go.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, right
Well, it's
now.
crazy to hear that, considering that Australia is like a great sporting nation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it was recently. Someone was saying, though, that obviously you're saying that sport was, or the esports is where sport was 30 years ago, but there's also been references made to the accelerated growth of esports as
hopefully.
well. Do you think maybe like it's not 30 years away?
No,
Hopefully
that's
it's
right.
only
Hopefully we'll
a
learn
couple?
some lessons and we can boost it along a little bit faster, but it requires, that injection of money, and what's going to hold us back is the eyeballs and the number of people playing the games, because our population is so much smaller than everywhere else, so that's going to hold us back a little bit.
Do you think maybe also the fragmentation, the amount of different esports titles there are to watch as well? The fact that there isn't just, there's obviously bigger games than others, but there's, X amount of FPS titles coming out as well.
Yeah.
There's more fragmentation occurring, whereas there's not a new...
The limits will be, I think, on the organisers actually running the tournaments. And, if we can get enough tournaments happening, then that will encourage the players to play. So I think it's a chicken and egg type argument.
Okay. Well, I'll be keeping a close eye on it. Hopefully I'm still in esports when
You
it all
better
pops
keep a
off.
close eye on it, because we're going to talk about it if it happens. So just
Yeah.
yeah,
That's right.
we're
Okay.
not going anywhere.
Great point.
There you go.
We've got
All
a
right.
schedule.
And speaking of schedules, we've got to move forward. So
Oh,
Gunny has asked,
Matt's got a gym to get
at
to.
Gunny
Yeah.
Oz, I do have to get to the gym, you are correct, which is why I'm in this lovely attire. As advised by you boys in the comments the other day, he's come forward and asked, in my opinion, in brackets, open bracket, CSGO, close bracket, space hyphen space, we're seeing...
what version's that?
I don't know, something. We're seeing a lack of fresh players and talent in the region, with the top rotating constantly in the last 3 to 5 years. Is the grassroots less committed to their craft, or is it a lack of well-developed open/amateur level grassroots that's attributed to this? Thoughts?
Well, look at the new Chiefs team. They're grassroots that come through.
Yeah,
I think,
certainly.
I think one's a flow-on effect for the other, right? Like the fact that there hasn't been, and we've talked about this previously, but like some of the grassroots initiatives haven't necessarily been managed the best way possible. There's a lack of faith in some of the TOs now. Everyone loved Tate on Cybergamer, right?
Yeah.
And it still exists. Some of it was justified. A lot of it was unjust.
Yeah.
Let's be real and say that then that has a flow-on effect that suddenly it, no one has faith that they can run a competition anymore. People stop signing up. That's one of your grassroots initiatives right then and there that's sort of starting to stagnate because no one's signing up to it. With grassroots, you always need to be attracting new players and bringing new players on, because a strong development scene also has a flow-on effect, which creates a strong top-tier scene.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen strong initiatives in grassroots from our biggest grassroots players.
Do you know what I'm going to attest it to?
It's had a flow-on effect.
I think you might catch what we've talked about this before, but it's like a lack of community. There's like a lack of, people coming in and being a part of a community. It's all just individuals just doing whatever they want
fragmented?
to do. Yeah, but there's nowhere to go and say, oh, I'm hanging out with the other Counter-Strike players here in this forum or on this Discord, where you can just get recognized and feel like you're part of a crew. And then that you keep in that cycle and then start competing. I just think like everyone's just out doing their own thing. There's no reason for anyone to go, why don't we take this seriously and see if we can win this amateur tournament? There is a couple of amateur tournaments around the place that you can try and play, but there's no reason for anyone to do that.
So you say, I guess it's hand in hand, right? Fragmentation of hubs of players. Like
also,
there
you have
used to
matchmaking, which is kind of counterintuitive as well.
But it's also, there used to be one big forum, which Counter-Strike players, and I know, obviously, as you said, James is talking about Counter-Strike, there used to be just one big forum and meeting place for all the players to go.
And everyone would go there. We've spoken about it. It's been fragmented. I feel like at least the grassroots, it needs another Steve Sams. Just a no bullshit head that can tell people to get out if they are pushing boundaries, etc. Steve had no problem just yelling at people, which is the fun part. Steve's a great bloke.
Yelling at people doesn't always work.
But the main question is, not always, but you get your point across. Is the grassroots less committed to their craft? I think it's more the community isn't there and they're less committed to grassroots. So everyone's... Pardon?
Not supportive enough.
Yeah, well, that's the one. People aren't, I guess, putting their time into making the grassroots grow, and everyone's more focused on what they are doing individually rather than as a team, rather than as a community. I guess maybe something like I Am Melbourne could be a bit of a saving grace. It might spark interest again because it's also in a different place as well.
Everyone always has that spark of motivation and interest after a big event.
That's the one. After I Am Sydney, everyone would go home and be like, oh, I really want to play now, and everyone would go crazy about it. And I was talking with Ben today, Ben Green on Facebook. He's like, oh, good to see Melbourne's so keen because all the premium tickets sold out. And I was like, well, what's to say that it's not like everyone else just flying down, because and he's like, well, why didn't the last couple of Sydney ones sell out? And I'll go, well, it's probably just because, Melburnians, they're quite pretentious at times and they won't come up to our city. Well, we're happy as Larry to go down there. Yeah, exactly.
3 years of events as well. Like the event itself now has a demand and a following.
It's a new event.
Not to say it always did, but now it's stronger than it was initially.
And there's also extras. It's not just IEM, it's MEO. There's all the other things as well for people to do. Yeah. And you can see some world-class quality Counter-Strike for the 2 days that it's there. And
do you think though that might be harmful, right? You said obviously a lot of people have that motivation spike after an event, but now it's not early in the year. It's not in May anymore. It's now they have to wait till August to be motivated.
August. August is a good time. August might have been the really...
They're sitting now in May going, oh, shit, I'm just waiting for that event. Yep, this motivation will come any day now.
I think August was the month last year where it was like, how January or like December to January, there's that month and a bit of just no esports, and it's kind of like hell when you want to just get back into it and, hone your craft and just watch it, etc.
Losing their minds.
But August was like that because I remember there was the AUNZ LAN, and then after the AUNZ LAN that was at the ESL studios, there was just nothing for like a month and a half.
The player break.
Yeah, well, I hate the player break. It's boring. Like
I want to go back a little bit because there is grassroots stuff happening if you're a tertiary student, because there's a lot of stuff happening in schools and university level, and I think that's useful, but it's not useful if you're not in the university. So there's
it is grassroots though. And
it is grassroots, and it's building something that's not there at the moment.
The question
building it up.
It's word of mouth though, to be honest. Yeah, there's not enough word of mouth.
The question is, right, with those at university and high school initiatives, like they're obviously where are they directing the players after they've played, right? Once they've played in those competitions. Some of those players, don't get me wrong, there are players I've seen in, for example, like some of the Rocket League competitions for Meta. They do play in professional teams already. But what about the other guys? Like some of them.
You don't think they're going to form teams? And
I haven't seen. Obviously, I'm not too well informed on it. But I'd love to see some of those players that maybe are just wanting to play at a professional level in high school, make that jump to a community or make that jump into a hub and try and test their skills in a wider setting as well. I think that'd be fantastic. I think that's also something to consider as well for anyone that is involved in any of the high school programs or the university programs is obviously you're providing pathways for players right now within the universities, but like that next step, I think
getting them into like MDL or something like that.
Even then, I think we've just seen it in Chiefs partnering with Bond University. I think having connections with multiple different esports organizations as well is going to be fantastic for providing those pathways.
If it becomes like a club sport.
Well, yeah, correct. I mean, you see in other sports as well, you have clubs that are feeder teams to professional outfits. I think something like that. There is room for that potentially in esports in general, even in just consulting those esports teams as to where the hubs are currently for their players. I know
Chiefs are running something for the next 3 weeks, the Queen Vic, which is right outside RMIT in Melbourne, and they're having like a come and try for all the range of sports. Tons of if you're a university student, go to your lectures and then afterwards come back and have a try at the games in the QV.
Attendance is key.
That's right. So they're trying to open it up and get a community happening at university. So Chiefs are trying a lot of different things. It's really quite good.
It can be tough, obviously, with the social stigmatism of being a gamer and so on.
I think the barriers for that are slowly being torn down.
Yeah,
I think it's safe to say that
amongst men.
Just generally as well, like based on Uber driver conversations as well. Everyone knows, thanks to the popularity of certain games like Fortnite and whatnot, there's at least an understanding that this thing exists, right?
Only because they have kids.
Correct. But it's also the understanding that they exist. Like this world exists, and it's slowly but surely starting to garner acceptance. So.
Yeah. Well, I think we've certainly answered this question and given our thoughts. But yeah, obviously, there's been a lot of leagues. I don't know, it feels like the leagues have thinned out a bit. I don't know if it's just
think it has.
It has, certainly.
At least the visibility, right? Like we used to see coverage of these events.
The cost, the sponsorship money is cut a little bit as well. That's really what's happened.
Well, we spoke to Nicole recently as well, and saying that like obviously a lot of the data-driven metrics for these leagues and things like that, the numbers have been fudged a little bit, and that does put people off in sponsoring some of these smaller grassroots initiatives. So I think it's going to be something that needs to be solved, is that either the cost for these things needs to be fine-tuned a little bit, or alternatively we need to find a way of, I don't know, instilling some faith back into grassroots initiatives for these sponsors. That's a question that's going to be asked over the long term, because otherwise we need grassroots, right? If there's no grassroots, there's no grass.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see what Gongcha and Demons do for Australia.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, we're waiting. We'll keep sleeping on that one. But that's the mailbag. I'm going to shut it up and boom, back to you.
Mac.
Awesome. It's I don't have an outro yet.
Oh, there you go.
Thanks to all the questioners.
Yeah, thank you to everyone that did ask some questions again today.
Excellent. I think that's a good place to wrap things up as well. Thank you very much for your time and
pleasure.
your expertise, Michelle.
Well, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
And feel free to come back anytime as well.
You know, I'll take you up on it. Look out.
Yeah.
Let us know. Obviously, best
She
of
knows
luck.
where you live now.
But you just have to reveal more information. The more you come on, the more you have to leak.
Uh-oh.
That's the deal. All right.
I mean, look at Mac.
I was perfect tonight, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were very...
Didn't give any leaks away. What? Much to the relief of my teams.
I mean, there was that scrim we listened to.
They didn't listen.
That's true. She was very adamant about not even letting us put it on the TV. She's like, no, I'll watch it on a laptop with headphones.
Top secret information, these strats.
Didn't even get to see the notepad.
Thank you for letting them know that.
Just providing clarity, okay?
Thank
'Cause
you.
If Ian's going to throw you under a bus, I'm at least going to try and
Pull me back out
Yeah.
again, please, Jim.
Not that Pete watches this
Chaotic
anyway.
evil.
it's chaotic.
Does Pete watch this?
Don't know.
We'll find out. There you go.
You bloody better.
Questions to be answered. Before we do go, a special thank you to our sponsor, Picklebet, who have recently rebranded from Skrilla. You may remember them as that name. They are still Australia's first esports betting website. So if you are having a punt, do check them out and do remember to gamble responsibly. As we said, thank you very much for your time and expertise, Michelle. I've been James Jimenez O'Cowan. Joining me for this episode, Ian Cyber-Turner, Michelle Pocket Psych,
Thank
Payne,
you.
and of course Geordie McAleer with the Esports Social Club. We'll catch you next time.
Picklebet.